So as a result of that, I decided that I want to get more actively involved with youth who are interested in pain. And I was able to do that with Kelly when she was a youth librarian at, what is that, Country Club Hills?
Yeah,
Grand Prairie Library in Country Club Hills. And so, more or less, that's what got me doing some of the type of images that you see in here, is to inspire young people and let them know that they too, you know, can draw pictures like this. One of the reasons why I created some of these images, well, I'll start on this side because these are some of the oldest pieces. I was asked to do these pieces for Black History Month a few years back, or maybe 2 years back. And my motivation for this was sometimes a lot of us aren't educated about our own history. And it's easier, you know, to inform yourself about, you know, where we come from and some of the struggles that people have had to go through in order to get us where we're at. And so if kids could walk into a library and they see, you know, Marcus Garvey, now they have a face to connect with the name, and the older they get, if the situation comes up again, they might learn something else because they already associated with something that they learned in the past. All these people, to me, you know, had a profound impact on my development as a young man. Somebody that I learned about later on in my life was this guy back here, John Brown. He was a white guy who led a slave revolt over on the East Coast in the Virginias. Basically, what motivated him was that he just didn't like the way the slaves were treated, so he decided to join forces with the slaves and rise up against the oppression. I thought that it was extremely important to include him because sometimes in our struggle as a people, we forget that it's a collaborative effort, that white people have made contributions to our progress. And I just wanted to put that in there to show some balance. Kelly's already explained to you what this piece is. You know, this piece over here is a portrait of my brother who passed back in November 4th of '99. One of the reasons why I brought it in here to show today is because this year has been really heavy on my mind with Barack Obama actually winning the presidency and on November 4th, you know. And I'm really sad that he is not going to get the chance to see this moment in history with us. But I did this piece a few years ago, you know, just so I could keep the memory of my brother close to me. And I did this piece around November of 2006. These images over here are all digital. You got a Barack Obama piece, another piece I call Matriarchy, and then a piece with a black unicorn in it. And my logic behind these pieces, you know, had a lot to do with, I don't know, it had a lot to do with the immediacy of the medium. Essentially, all these images were done inside of a computer screen. And when you do the image, you don't have to like actually have actual space to store it. You know, you just put it on your hard drive and it's there. And so the program that I use for these 3 images is called GIMP. It's like Photoshop, but it's completely free. It's extremely versatile, and you know anybody could use it to paint. But yeah, the piece on the end there is a method of me injecting our image as black folks into the fantasy element. You know, we very rarely get a chance to see our kids, you know, with those elements of fantasy, like, you know, in children's books and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice. In the future, I'd like to do some children's illustration, you know, to do more of this kind of artwork. The second image over here is a piece I call Matriarchy, and I more or less developed that in response to some of the misogynistic things I was hearing people say around me. I'll skip the story about why I did the piece, but what I will say is that black women in my life are strong, you know, they're relevant, they go the distance for their families. You know, I was predominantly raised by my mother, and so whenever I hear any kind of sexist rhetoric, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. You know, black women have been the backbones of black society from the plantation to the present day, and I hate to hear about them being disrespected. the symbols and the stones around the figure, the first one is Andrinka, which stands for vigilance. The second one, in the top right corner, is Sankofa. It stands for the importance of looking back and the relevance of history. The one at the bottom is actually the shape of the symbol seat of a symbol of the seat of power, and the image inside of that seat of power stands for no one but God. In other words, no one but God can judge me. And I felt like having her elevated in the air made her seem untouchable and regal, and the crown is, of course, reminiscent of her being a queen. And I basically constructed the image off of the way it made me feel. So that's more or less what I got.
I like that piece. We like that piece, don't we, Saisha? We like that in the middle.
And the third digital image is an image of Barack Obama, and he's juggling dream catchers. The relevance for me of the dream catchers was that so many people's dreams are hinged on his success, him getting into office, and he is somebody who's trying to capture the best of people's imaginations, filtering out bad dreams and ushering in the good ones. So that was the idea behind that piece. So that's basically it. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
As a librarian, I face the internet, and people are worried that print will become computerized, the digital age. And I see that you went from traditional art, pastel, which is a hard medium. Most people, they say your pastels are great because they can't control the pastel like you do. But you went from the pastels to the digital. You says that there's no storage space. The program is free, because what's an original program? How much would it cost if you paid for a digital program?
Adobe Photoshop student versions are probably running in the area of like $400 to $600. That's not even professional versions. This program that I use, GIF, does approximately the same thing, but it's free software. So that's a benefit.
Right, the benefit of having no storage space, being able to upload the image anytime you want,
Absolutely.
Not having a hard copy. So
absolutely.
Should we be afraid of the traditional art?
No, not at all. Because these images, the retail value depends on the limited edition of the prints. So if I only make 10 of them and that's all I'm going to sell, and that's my promise to the customer, and I'm famous, provided, right? The price of each print will go up. But just as it is, the cost of it, it's not going to reach as much as a traditional media piece, generally speaking. If an artist were to do both, the traditional media would generally cost more simply because of the level of mastery that it takes to actually produce an image and turn a lot of people on with it. I mean, there's no replacing the old methods. There's no replacing it. It's not so much that this stuff is easier. This stuff exists in the real world. That stuff is digital, And there's a lot of, I don't know, people associate a lot of good, like historically, with the physical act of painting, and doing portraits in traditional media, that I don't think that the traditional media will ever lose its significance.
So do you have a wider audience now, like with the social networking, and MySpace and Facebook? Do you have now a wider audience, since they don't physically have to come out and see the physical piece? Now it's online through your social network.
Yeah, to some extent it is. I mean, one of the places that I've been posting my images is on Zazzle.com, and it's essentially like an online warehouse, and they have galleries there where people could just, scan through images all day looking for whatever